Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, I just wanted to do a quick review of where we are at the moment. So I'd like to thank all the devotees for joining. For us to continue with the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, we're on the 13th chapter. So what's happened so far? First canto is all about creation, and initially number of questions were asked by various sages, and 6 questions in total. And then the author of the reciter of the Bhagavatam started answering them. And actually, it started with Sutta Goswami being asked the questions by the sages of Naimisharanya, and he answered those questions. Then in chapters 2, 3, and chapters 2 talks about divinity and divine service. Chapter 3 talks about the different avatars and how Krishna is the source of all the incarnations. Then chapter 4 is the discussion of how the Bhagavatam actually appeared by the grace of Narad Muni meeting Srila Vyasadev, and then Narad Muni giving instructions in chapter 5 to Srila Vyasadev. And that continues in the conversation between them in chapter 6. And then chapter 7, we read about how the son of Dronacharya, Ashwatthama, was punished by the Pandavas. And then there were some phenomenal prayers by Mother Kunti in chapter 8, and the beginning of Parikshit Maharaj's pastime, where he was saved by Lord Krishna in the womb of his mother, Uttara. Chapter 9 discusses the passing away of Bismardev in the presence of Lord Krishna. Number 10 is when Krishna departs for Dwarka after staying with the Pandavas for many months after the war of Kurukshetra. Chapter 11 is Krishna's entrance into Dwarka, how the residents of Dwarka met him. Chapter 12 is the birth of Parikshit Maharaj. And we are now going to enter into chapter number 13, the Dharastra leaving home. So I wanted to hand over to Ananda Leela. You can, of course, do the invocations, etc. Ananda Leela, Padaji, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes. Shri Nityananda Chandram Patita Sharanadam Gauradam Tam Bhajeham Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shirvasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayet Nashta Prayeshva Abhadresu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Sloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Chapter 13. Dhritarashtra quits home. Sutta uvacha vidurastirthayatrayam Maitrayad atmanogatim Janvagadhashtina puram taya vapta vivitsitaha.
So, Who'd like to read? Is Shaivi or Kathan, Kathet, who'd like to read? Okay, I tell you what, Lena, in the meantime, would you like to read?
Oh, yes, please,
Okay,
Prabhuji.
go for it.
Sri Sutta Goswami said, while traveling on a pilgrimage, Vidur received knowledge of the destination of the self from the great sage Maitreya, and then returned to Hastinapur. He became as well versed in the subject as he desired. Hari Bol.
यावतः कृतवान् प्रश्नान् क्षताको सारवाग्रतः जातैकभक्तिर्गोविन्दे तेभ्यश्चोपररामः.
You can carry on, Lena.
Thank you. After asking various questions and becoming established in the transcendental loving service of Lord Krishna, Vidur retired from putting questions to Maitreya Muni.
तं बन्धुमागतं दृष्ट्वा धर्मपुत्रः सहानुजः धृतराष्ट्रो युयुत्सुश्च सुतः सारद्वतः पृथा गान्धारी द्रौपदी ब्रह्मन् सुभद्रा श्रोतरा कृपी अन्याश्च जमयः पाण्डोर् Jantaya sasutah striyah.
When they saw Vidur return to the palace, all the inhabitants, Maharaj Yudhishthir, his younger brothers, Dhritarashtra, Satyaki, Sanjaya, Kripacharya, Kunti, Gandhari, Draupadi, Subhadra, Uttara, Krapi, many other wives of the Kauravas and other ladies with children all hurried to him in great delight. It so appeared that they had regained their consciousness after a long period.
Pratyug jagmuhu praharsena pranam tanva ivagatam abhisangamya vidhivat parisvangabhivadanai.
With great delight, they all approached him as if life had returned in their bodies. They exchanged obeisances and welcomed each other with embraces.
Mumuchuh prema bhashpogham virahotkanchakataraha rajatam arhayam chakre kritasana parigraham.
Due to anxieties and long separation, they all cried out of affection. King Yudhishthir then arranged to offer sitting accommodations and a reception.
Tam bhoktavantam vishrantam asinam sukhamasane prasrayavanato raja prahatesham cha shanvatam.
After Vidur ate sumptuously and took sufficient rest, he was comfortably seated. Then the king began to speak to him, and all who were present there listened.
Great. So we can take a little pause there. And so this chapter is entitled Dhritarashtra Quits Home. And this first 7 texts deal with Vidur, who is the brother of Dhritarashtra, younger brother. And he's also the uncle of the Pandavas. While he was traveling on pilgrimage, he received knowledge of the destination of the soul from the great sage Maitreya. And then Vidur asked the permission of Maitreya to leave and return back to Hastinapur. Not that he was attached to Hastinapur, but he had a mission to fulfill in Hastinapur. And when the residents of Hastinapur saw Vidur, they were very pleased. And after Vidur had eaten sumptuously and taken enough rest, King Yudhishthir spoke to him. Okay, so let's carry on.
युधिष्ठिर उवाच अपि स्मरथ नो युष्मत् पक्षक्षाया समेधितान् विपद्गणाद्विषाज्ञादे मोचिता यत्समात्रिकाः.
Do I carry on, Prabhuji?
I think yes, carry on. Unless somebody else wants to read, but otherwise carry on.
Maharaj Yudhishthir said, my uncle, do you remember how you always protected us, along with our mother, from all sorts of calamities? Your partiality, like the wings of a bird, saved us from poisoning and arson.
Oops. Sorry, probably.
That's okay.
No, we can't see like the screen.
Oh.
No, I think we are having trouble with our. I can't.
Yeah. We continue reading. I'll just bring it up.
Kaya vritya vartitam vas charadbhikshiti mandalam tirthani kshetra mukhyani sevitani ha bhutale.
While traveling on the surface of the earth, how did you maintain your livelihood? At which holy places and pilgrimage sites did you render service?
Bhavadvidha bhagavatas tirtha bhuta swayam vibho tirthi kurvanti tirthani swantahasthena gadabhrita.
My Lord, devotees like your good self are verily holy places personified. Because you carry the personality of Godhead within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage.
Api nahsurhidastata bandhavah Krishna devataha drishtaha sutravah yadavah swapuryam sukhamasate.
My uncle, you must have visited Dwarka. In that holy place are our friends and well-wishers, the descendants of Yadu, who are always wrapped in the service of the Lord Sri Krishna. You might have seen them or heard about them. Are they all living happily in their abodes?
Iti ukto dharmarajena sarvam tat samavarnayat yathanubhutam kramaso vinayadukulakshayam.
Thus being questioned by Maharaj Yudhishthir, Mahatma Vidur gradually described everything he had personally experienced, except news of the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty.
Nanva apriyam durvisaham nirnam swayam upashthitam navedayat sakaruno dukkhitandrastum aksharmaha.
Compassionate Mahatma Vidur could not stand to see the Pandavas distressed at any time. Therefore, he did not disclose the unpalatable and unbearable incident because calamities come of their own accord.
Kanchit kalam athavatsit satkrito devavat sukham bhratur jeshthasya shreyaskrit sarvesham sukhamavahan.
Thus, Mahatma Vidur, being treated just like a godly person by his kinsmen, remained there for a certain period, just to rectify the mentality of his elder brother, and in this way bring happiness to all the others.
Abhibhrad aryamadendam yatavad aghakarisu yavad dadhara sudradvam sapadvarsha satam yamaha.
As long as Vidur played the part of a Sudra, being cursed by Manduka Muni, Aryama officiated at the post of Yamaraj to punish those who committed sinful acts.
Yudhishthiro labdharajyo drishtva pautram kulandharam bhratrabhir lokapalabhir mumudde parayashriya.
Having won his kingdom and observed the birth of one grandson competent to continue the noble tradition of his family, Maharaj Yudhishthir resigned peacefully and enjoyed uncommon opulence in cooperation with his younger brothers, who were all expert administrators to the common people.
Okay. So Yudhishthir, when he was talking with Vidur, recounted how his uncle had protected him, the Pandavas, from so many calamities, such as being poisoned and arson. So this was all the plan of Duryodhan and Shakuni to get rid of the Pandavas. But Vidur, being the prime minister at that time, was aware and very astute, and he would protect the Pandavas from all these different calamities. And Yudhishthira Maharaj then very nice, sweetly asked his uncle how he had maintained himself while he was in pilgrimage. Because what happened was Vidur was insulted by Dhritarashtra before the Kurukshetra war. And he left Kurukshetra in disgust, and he went on pilgrimage. And he went to see many holy places. He met with Maitri Rishi, who explained a lot of Krishna consciousness to him. And then Yudhishthira makes this wonderful comment, a wonderful verse. Devotees like yourself are just like holy places personified. Because you carry the Supreme Lord within your heart, you turn all places into places of pilgrimage. So this is what devotees do. Wherever they go, they actually turn that place into the spiritual world. And we've seen that. Srila Prabhupada is a fantastic example. Somebody who went to the West, full of Maya, hellish condition of life. But yet when he went there, transformed the place. Everything around him was spiritual, because he's spiritual. And then Yudhishthira Maharaj asked about Dwarka and Krishna, and Vidur explained everything except the annihilation of the Yadu dynasty, which is interesting because he didn't want to upset Yudhishthira and the Pandavas. He knew they were very close, so he was very keen not to upset them. So, and then there was a little discussion about how Vidur was cursed, or rather Yamaraja was cursed to appear as a Shudra. So what happened in very brief terms was that there was a Muni who had been punished by Yamaraj, and the Muni inquired from Yamaraj, why am I being punished like this? He was punished, I think he was, what was it? He was, I've forgotten the punishment. It was quite a heavy punishment. I think he was, he was made to hang from, or hang on, do you remember? What was the punishment? It was like a wooden cross was put right through his body or something like that. So the sage asked Vidur, or asked Yamaraj, why am I being punished like this? So Vidur, the Yamaraj answered, because when you were little, you were similarly throwing arrows, small little arrows at ants and killing them like that. So you were facing the same punishment. But the sage got angry. He said, that was when I was very little and ignorant of the rules and regulations of life. How can this be such a suitable punishment for me? And he cursed Yamaraj to become a Shudra, because you're acting like a Shudra. So the curse came true. And in the meantime, Aryama was looking after Yamaraj's position in the heavenly planets, doing his duty. That's quite interesting. And then Yudhishthira also was describing how his rule was so perfect. Okay, so let's carry on. Oops.
Evam grihesu saktanam pramatanam tad ihaya achakramadya vijyantaha kalaha paramadushtaraha.
Insurmountable eternal time imperceptibly overcomes those who are too much attached to family affairs and are always engrossed in their thought.
Vidurastad abhipretya dhristarastram abhasata rajan nirgamyatam shighram pashedam bhayam agatam.
Mahatma Vidur knew all this, and therefore he addressed the Dhritarashtra, saying, "My dear king, please get out of here immediately. Do not delay. Just see how fear has overtaken you."
Pratikriyana yasheha kutaschit karhichit prabho saesha bhagavan kalaha sarvesham naha samagataha.
This frightful situation cannot be remedied by any person in this material world. My Lord, it is the Supreme Personality of Godhead as eternal time, Kala, that has approached us all.
Yena chaivabhipannoyam pranai priyatamerapi janah sadyo viyujeta kim utanirdhanadibihi.
Whoever is under the influence of Supreme Kala, eternal time, must surrender his most dear life, and what to speak of other things such as wealth, honor, children, land, and home.
Pitra bhratra sruhit putra hataste vigatam bhayam atma cha jaraya grastah parageham upasase.
Your father, brother, well-wishers, and sons are all dead and passed away. You yourself have expended the major portion of your life. Your body is now overtaken by invalidity, and you are living in the home of another.
Andah pureva vadhiro manda pragyascha sampratam vishirna danto mandagnihi saragah kafamudvahan.
You have been blind from your very birth, and recently you have become hard of hearing. Your memory is shortened, and your intelligence is disturbed. Your teeth are loose, your liver is defective, and you're coughing up mucus.
Aho mahiyasi jantor jivita sa yatha bhavan bhima pavarjitam pindam adate griha palavat.
Alas, how powerful are the hopes of a living being to continue his life. Verily, you are living just like a household dog and are eating remnants of food given by Bhim.
Agnirnisrasto datascha garodarash dushitaha hitam kshetram dhanam yesham taddater asubhikiyat.
There is no need to live a degraded life and subsist on the charity of those whom you tried to kill by arson and poisoning. You also insulted their married wife and usurped their kingdom and wealth.
Tashapi tava dehoyam kripanasya jijivisoho pareti anichato jirno jaraya vasasi iva.
Despite your unwillingness to die and your desire to live even at the cost of honor and prestige, your miserly body will certainly dwindle and deteriorate like an old garment.
Gata swartham imam deham virakto mukta bandhanaha avingyata gatir jahiyat savaidhira udharhitaha.
He is cooled undisturbed who goes to an unknown remote place and freed from all obligations, quits his material body when it has become useless.
Yasvakat parato veha jata nirveda atmavan hirdikritva harim gehat pravajit sa narotamaha.
He is certainly a first-class man who awakens and understands, either by himself or from others, the falsity and misery of the material world, and thus leaves home and depends fully on the personality of Godhead residing within his heart.
Atho desim disham yatu swerangyanta gatir bhavan ito rivak prayasah kalaha pumsam guna vikarsanaha.
Please, therefore, leave for the north immediately, without letting your relatives know, for soon the time will approach which will diminish the good qualities of men.
Very interesting instructions by Vidur to his elder brother, Dhritarashtra. He advised him, his blind brother, who was living in fear. Why was living in fear? Because he was living in another's home. Although it was his palace, it was now ruled by a different king who killed his sons. These are the Pandavas. He advised him to leave the palace. His body was old. Dhritarashtra's body was old and now diseased. His memory was short. Intelligence was disturbed. Teeth were loose, etc., etc. I know the feeling. The Supreme Lord as time eternal is approaching, advised by Vidur. The first-class man understands the falsity and misery of this material world and thus leaves home and depends fully on the Supreme Lord residing within the heart. So this is really amazing instructions because our attachments are so strong. Even we are coming to the end of our time in this body, yet we can't give up the attachments. And that will keep us in this world. As long as we are attached to things of this world, which are related only to the body, that will mean that we will not become free from this world. We'll stay in this world. That's the nature of karma. That's the nature of how the laws of material nature work. If we have attachments here, our desires will continue and the Lord will continue to fulfill those desires. And those desires will be related to our material attachments. Our Guru Maharaj had a fantastic instruction on this. And I'm just trying to see if I can play this video, this clip on YouTube. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to hear it, but let's have a go. This is such an important, it's only a 2-minute video, but it's such a powerful instruction. Let me see if it plays well. I don't think I can hear it. Just wanted to check, can you hear what he's saying?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. No, we can't hear, make it out.
Oh, what a shame. Well, okay, I will repeat it. We'll repeat what he's saying.
Yes, please.
Such an amazing thing. The future doesn't mean what you get before you leave this body. Future means what you get after you leave this body. What is your destination? That is your future. Think about it. Now you can make an effort. Now, not when you can not walk. Now you can make the effort, but no, you won't be able to take bath. You won't be able to change your clothes. You'll be depending on others. Somebody comes and puts something into your mouth and then you can eat and give you drink to water drink. And you call your sons and your daughters, nobody will want to hear you. They won't care for you. Who is this old man? You want to get rid of that old man. He's a burden. When will that headache disappear? He's always coughing day and night, doesn't sleep, doesn't let us sleep. When will this old man leave this place? That will be our situation. Forget it, you can do anything at the time when you're old. And you'll be cursing yourself. Because there's such misery at that time. Miserable life. Now is the time. Make hay as the sun shines. This is now. Whilst your body is in good health. This is the best time to serve the Lord, to get God realization, Krishna realization. This is one of the most powerful instructions he gave some few years ago. And it's always resonated well with me. So we try to put our best effort in while we can. Because when we can't. When we're old, we're going to become burdens to our families. If we, Dhatarashtra was very fortunate. He was able to leave home. He followed what Vidu said, as we're going to see. But our situation may not be the same. We may not be in a capable position to leave. So the thing is, what to do? We must serve now, whilst we can, whilst the body is still able to do something. Do it. And Guru Maharaj used to often say, if you have the opportunity to serve, serve now. Because don't put things off till tomorrow, because tomorrow will never come. Tomorrow will be too late. If you're going to do it now. So this is very invaluable, very valuable instructions, which somehow or other we have to imbibe into our life. And we can only do that if we have faith that devotional service will purify our existence and make us closer to the Supreme Lord. That's really powerful stuff. Okay, let's carry on.
Evam Raja Vidurena Nujena Pragya Chakshur Bodhita Jamidha Chidvasve Susteha Pashandradhimno Nishchakrama Bhratra Sandarsitadva.
Thus Maharaj Dhatarashtra, the son of the family of Ajamida, firmly convinced by introspective knowledge, prajna, broke at once the strong network of familial affection by his resolute determination. Thus he immediately left home to set out on the path of liberation as directed by his younger brother Vidur.
पतिं प्रयान्तं सुफलस्य पुत्री पतिव्रता चानु जगाम साध्वी हिमालयं यस्तादन्दा प्रहर्षम् मनस्विनामीव सत्सम्प्रहारः.
The gentle and chaste Gandhari, who was the daughter of King Subala of Kandahar or Gandhara, followed her husband, saying that he was going to the Himalaya mountains, which are the delight of those who have accepted the staff of the renounced order, like fighters who have accepted a good lashing from the enemy.
अजातशत्रु कृतमेत्रुहुताग्निर् विप्रानत्वातिलगो भूमिरुक्मयि गृहं प्रविष्टो गुरुवन्दनाय न चापश्यत् पितरसो बलिं च.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, whose enemy was never born, performed his daily morning duties by praying, offering fire sacrifice to the sun god, and offering obeisances, grains, cows, land, and gold to the brahmanas. He then entered the palace to pay respects to the elderly. However, he could not find his uncles or aunt, the daughter of King Subala.
तत्र संजयम् आसीनं पप्रक्षोद्विग्नमानसः गावगणे क्वनस्तातो वृद्धो हिनश्च नेत्रयो.
Maharaj Yudhishthir, full of anxiety, turned to Sanjaya, who was sitting there, and said, "O Sanjaya, where is our uncle who is old and blind?"
अम्बा चाहता पुत्राता पृथ्व्याक्व गतः श्रुहीत् अपि मयि अकृत प्राज्ञे हत बन्धु सभार्यया आसं समानः समलं गङ्गायां दुःखितोपतत्.
Where is my well-wisher uncle Vidur and mother Gandhari, who is very afflicted due to all her sons' demise? My uncle Dhritarashtra was also very mortified due to the death of all his sons and grandsons. Undoubtedly, I am very ungrateful. Did he therefore take my offenses very seriously, and along with his wife drown himself in the Ganges?
पितरि उपरते पाण्डो सर्वान्नः सुहृदः शिशून् अरक्षतां व्यासनतः पितृव्यो क्वागतावितः.
When my father Pandu fell down and we were all small children, these two uncles gave us protection from all kinds of calamities. They were always our good well-wishers. Alas, where have they gone from here?
Sutta uvacha कृपया स्नेहवैक्लव्यात् स्तुतो वीरः कर्षितः आत्मेश्वरम् अचक्षानो न प्रत्याहाति पीडितः.
Sutta Goswami said, because of compassion and mental agitation, Sanjaya, not having seen his own master, Dhritarashtra, was aggrieved and could not properly reply to Maharaj Yudhishthir.
विम्रयाश्रुनि पाणिभ्यां विस्तभ्यात्मानमात्मना अजातशत्रुं प्रत्युस्से प्रभो पादावनुस्मरन्.
First, he slowly pacified his mind by intelligence, and wiping away his tears and thinking of the feet of his master, Dhritarashtra, he began to reply to Maharaj Yudhishthir.
संजय उवाच नाहं वेद व्यावसितं पित्रोर्वः कुलनन्दन Gandharya va mahabaho mushitosmi mahatmabhihi.
Sanjaya said, "My dear descendant of the Kuru dynasty, I have no information of the determination of your two uncles and Gandhari. O king, I have been cheated by those two great souls."
Atha jagama bhagavan naradah sah tumburuhu pratyuthaya bhivajaha sanujo bhyarchayan munim.
While Sanjaya was thus speaking, Sri Narada, the powerful devotee of the Lord, appeared on the scene carrying his tambur. Maharaj Yudhishthir and his brothers received him properly by getting up from their seats and offering obeisances.
Wonderful. So also if Shevi or Poonamataji you'd like to read, you're welcome to. So let's do the summary of, oh yeah, that's okay, that's okay. So Dhritarashtra leaves home. As soon as he heard the instructions of Vidur, he realized, I am in the wrong place. And he actually did the amazing thing. He left home. He forgot about all the attachments. In fact, he'd lost all his children anyway. That helped. That helped. And he was living in the homes of those who killed his children. So obviously there was some animosity there. Even maybe a little bit, but it was there. That would have helped. But with those instructions really, really hit home. And that was great because he left home and Vidur accompanied him, and his very chaste wife, Gandhari, went with him. They went on the path of liberation as directed by Vidur. So this is the advantage of having somebody who is so advanced in the family. Vidur was extremely advanced soul, as was Yudhishthir, etc. But they were nephews and they were very attached to Dhritarashtra. They wanted Dhritarashtra to live with them because they felt very bad. They killed their children. And they also liked Dhritarashtra and Gandhari anyway. That was their nature. So King Yudhishthira wouldn't have let them go, but Vidur was very cutting in his instructions. And this is the point about a sadhu. That's what a sadhu does. Sadhu doesn't, artificially compliment somebody. He can compliment, but he won't be artificial. It'll be according to that person's activities. But what a sadhu does, he cuts through all of the crap, if you like, in this world, and he'll give the nectar of instructions. And that's what Vidur did, gave the nectar of instructions to Dhritarashtra, and they were accepted by Dhritarashtra, who left home. King Yudhishthira, when he went to pay his respects to his two uncles, Vidur and Dhritarashtra, and his auntie, he couldn't find them, and he became full of anxiety. Did he say something wrong? Has my elder uncle Dhritarashtra killed himself because I was rude to him? And he inquired about the whereabouts of Dhritarashtra from Sanjay. And of course, Sanjay didn't know either. And this was the amazing thing. They just left. This is showing great detachment from family life. And at some point, we have to also have that detachment. It will come anyway, because at some point when we're old, the children will be, and this is invariably, it will happen. And it's a good thing if it happens. The children will be disgusted with us being around. We'll become burdens. And that's a good thing, because we don't want to be a burden on anybody. At that time, we just leave. We just go. Take care of ourselves somewhere else, in the spiritual place, in the holy dhams. Powerful instructions. So, yes, Poonam Mataji. Thank you very much, Lena. You read beautifully. Hope you don't mind, Poonam Mataji and Shavi, whoever would like to read.
Of course not. I
Thank
feel
you so
really
much.
honored. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Fantastic. Fantastic.
Hare Krishna.
युधिष्ठिर उवाच नाहं वेद गतिं पित्रोर्भगवन् क्व गतावितः अम्बावाहत पुत्रार्था क्व गता च तपस्विनी.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj Yudhishthir said, O godly personality, I do not know where my two uncles have gone, nor can I find my ascetic aunt who is grief-stricken by the loss of all her sons.
कर्णधार इवापारे भगवान् पारदर्शकः अथाभासे भगवान् नारदो मुनिसत्तमः.
You are like a captain of a ship in a great ocean, and you can direct us to our destination. Thus addressed, the godly personality, Devashri Narad, greatest of the philosopher devotees, began to speak.
नारद उवाच मा कञ्चन शुचो राजन् यदीश्वरवशं जगत् लोकाः सफालयस्ये वहन्ति बलिमीशितुः स संयुनक्ति भूतानि स एव वियुनक्ति च.
Sri Narad said, O pious king, do not lament for anyone, for everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, all living beings and the leaders carry on worship to be well protected. It is He only who brings them together and disperses them.
यथा गावो नसी प्रोतास तन्त्यां बधाश्च दामभिः वाक्तन्त्यां नामभिर्बद्धा वहन्ति बलिमीशितुः.
As a cow bound through the nose by a long rope is conditioned, so also human beings are bound by different Vedic injunctions and are conditioned to obey the orders of the Supreme.
यथा क्रीडोपष्कराणां संयोग विगमाविह इच्छया क्रीडितुः शातां तथैवेशेक्षयानिनाम्.
As a player sets up and disperses his playthings according to his own sweet will, so the supreme will of the Lord brings men together and separates them.
यन्मान्यसे ध्रुवं लोकम् अध्रुवं वा न क्षोभयम् सर्वथा न हि सोचास्ते स्नेहादन्यत्र मोहजात्.
O king, in all circumstances, whether you consider the soul to be an eternal principle, or the material body to be perishable, or everything to exist in the impersonal absolute truth, or everything to be an inexplicable combination of matter and spirit, feelings of separation are due only to illusionary affection and nothing more.
तस्माच् जह्यङ्गवैक्लव्यम् अज्ञानकृतमात्मनः कथं त्वा अनाथा कृपणा वर्तिरंस्ते च मां विना.
Therefore, give up your anxiety due to ignorance of the self. You are now thinking of how they, who are helpless poor creatures, will exist without you.
कालकर्म गुणाधीनो देहोऽयं पाञ्चभौतिकः कथम् अन्यांस्तु गोपायेत् sarpagrasto yatha param.
This gross material body, made of 5 elements, is already under the control of eternal time, kala, action, karma, and the modes of material nature, guna. How then can it, being already in the jaws of the serpent, protect others?
Ahastani sahastanam apadani chatushpadam falguni tatra mahatam jivo jivasya jivanam.
Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are the subsistence of the strong, and the general rule holds that one living being is food for another.
Tad idam bhagavan rajan eka atmatmanam swadrik antaro nantaro bhati pashyatam maya yorudha.
Therefore, O King, you should look to the Supreme Lord only, who is one without a second, and who manifests himself by different energies and is both within and without.
Soyam adya maharaja bhagavan bhutta bhavanaha kala rupo vartino sham abhavaya suradvisham.
That Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, in the guise of all devouring time, Kal Roop, has now descended to the earth to eliminate the envious from the world.
Nishpaditam devakrityam avasesham pratiksate tavadyuyam avikshadvam bhavidyavat iheshwaraha.
The Lord has already performed his duties to help the demigods, and he is awaiting the rest. You Pandavas may wait as long as the Lord is here on earth.
Thank you. Very good. So Narad Muni preaches to Yudhishthir. While Sanjay was speaking to Yudhishthir, explaining that he didn't know where his uncles were, Narad Muni appeared on the scene, and he always appears at exactly the right moment. He was, of course, properly received by King Yudhishthir, and King Yudhishthir explained his grief to Narad Muni about his auntie and his uncles. He was really concerned. It wasn't false, it was genuine concern. Narad Muni, however, advised him, don't lament for anyone, as everyone is under the control of the Supreme Lord. And that interesting verse where he talks about how one living entity is prey for another living entity as food. Yeah. So this is a little indication about our natural food as well, which is supposed to be plants and fruits, etc. And he also explains to him, advises to Yudhishthir Maharaj that your focus should always be Krishna. You're a devotee of Krishna. You're very close to Krishna. Krishna is very close to you. Don't lose that focus. So Narad Muni advises Yudhishthir to become fixed as opposed to becoming having such limitations, which is really good advice. So we are also in the same situation. We may have situation where we lose something which is connected with this body, and if we lament unnecessarily in respect of that loss, then actually we are losing our focus. So this chapter is actually very, very instructive. Okay, let's carry on. This is the last part now. So yes, you can continue to read, Mataji.
Dhritarashtra saha bhratra Gandharya cha svabharyaya Dakshinena himavata Rishinam ashramam gataha.
O king, your uncle Dhritarashtra, his brother Vidur, and his wife Gandhari have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains, where there are shelters of the great sages.
Shrotobhi saptabhiryavai Swardhuni saptadhavyadhat Saptanam pritaye nana Saptashrotaha prachakshate.
Hare Krishna.
Hey! I recognize that voice.
The place is called Saptashrotra. Shrota. Divided by 7 because there the waters of the sacred Ganga were divided into 7 branches. This was done for the satisfaction of the 7 great rishis.
Snatvanu savanam tasmin Hudva chagnin yatha vidhi Abhaksha upasantatma Sa ashte vigate sanaha.
On the banks of Saptasrota, Dhritarashtra is now engaged in beginning Ashtanga Yoga by bathing 3 times daily, in the morning, noon, and evening, by performing the Agnihotra, sacrifice with fire, and by drinking only water. This helps one control the mind and senses and frees one completely from thoughts and familial affection.
Jitasano jitta swasaha Pratyahirta sadindriyaha Hari bhavanaya dvasta Rajaha satvatamo malah.
One who has controlled the sitting postures, the yogic asanas, and the breathing process can turn the senses towards the absolute personality of Godhead and thus become immune to the contaminations of the modes of material nature, namely mundane goodness, passion, and ignorance.
Vijnanatmani samyojya Kshetanye pravilapyatam Brahmani atmanam adhare Ghatambaram ivambare.
Dhritarashtra will have to amalgamate his pure identity with intelligence and then merge into the Supreme Being with knowledge of his qualitative oneness as a living entity with the Supreme Brahman. Being freed from the block sky, he will have to rise to the spiritual sky.
Dvastamaya gunodarko niruddha karanasayaha nivartita khilahara ashte sthanurivachalaha tashyantarayo me vabuhu sanyasta khila karmanaha.
He will have to suspend all the actions of the senses, even from the outside, and will have to be impervious to the interactions of the senses, which are influenced by the modes of material nature. After renouncing all material duties, he must become immovably established beyond all sources of hindrances on the path.
Sava adyatana drajan paratah panchame hanti kalevaram hasyati swam tachcha bhashmi bhavishyati.
O king, he will quit his body, most probably on the 5th day from today, and his body will turn to ashes.
Dahyamani gnibhirdehe patyuh patni sahojattaje bahisthita patim sadvi tamagnim anuvikshate.
While outside observing her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power, along with his thatched cottage, his
chaste
wife will enter the fire with rapt attention.
Vidurastu tadascharya nishamya kurunandana harsha sokayutas tasmad gantatirtha nishevakaha.
Vidur, being affected with delight and grief, will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage.
Iti uktva tharuhat swargam naradah sahatumburuhu yudhishthiro vachastasya hirdikrit pajahakchuchaha. Hare Krishna.
Having spoken thus, the great sage Narad, along with his Veena, ascended into outer space. Yudhishthir kept his instruction in his heart, and so was able to get rid of all lamentations.
Srimad Bhagavatam 13 chapter ki jai. Thank you so much, Nandalila and Shaivi and Punamataji and Leena. Thank you so much. So last part, Dhritarashtra's perfection. Narad Muni informed Yudhishthira that his uncles and auntie have gone to the southern side of the Himalaya mountains. On the banks of the Saptarota, the elder uncle was engaged in Ashtanga yoga practice. So this is the Ashtanga yoga is the bodily posture of sitting in a straight position, in a lotus position, and focusing the mind on the super soul, usually. And he most probably will quit his body on the 5th day from now. So Narad Muni is giving his prediction. And that's exactly what actually happened. The auntie then will observe her husband, who will burn in the fire of mystic power along with their cottage. And she will also enter into the fire with rapt attention. In that way, she will also become liberated. The younger uncle being affected with delight and grief. Grief because, after all, this was his brother. Delight because Dhritarashtra has perfected his life. He will then leave that place of sacred pilgrimage. Having thus spoken, Narad Muni left for the outer space, and Yudhishthira kept Narad's instructions in his heart, and so was able to get rid of all lamentations. So this is the end of chapter 13, really a phenomenal chapter. Any questions, any comments? Very instructive chapter, this one. Everybody happy? Some tough instructions in this chapter.
Prabhuji?
Yes.
Yeah, on that story about, I think that sage, who had inflicted pain to the ant when he was a child and was, bearing the fruits of that karma. I mean, he had a very valid question that he was young. He didn't have the disposition, to his disposition, he didn't have the understanding as a child, that he is inflicting pain to that ant. On that basis, how can somebody be punished? I mean, I understand, the what we can say, the principles of karma and things like that. But this has always been a question that when somebody is doing it in an ignorant stage, especially young little children, how can the accounts start from that stage onwards?
Yeah,
I feel.
I think up to the age of 5, the karma of the child belongs to the parent. And it's said that, I think, is that right? After the age of 5, up to the age of 5. And then the children are supposed to understand a little bit more. But you're absolutely right. That's why the sage cursed Yamaraj. In one sense, ignorance is not an excuse, but when you're a child, you're innocent. So that should be taken into account for sure. But it's like fire, if you touch fire, you're going to get burnt, whether you're a small child or you're an adult, doesn't matter. Fire won't discriminate. So karma, in one sense, will neither discriminate. If something wrong is done, then the punishment will be there. But it's a question of who's responsible for that punishment. And I think up to the age of 5, generally speaking, the punishment, if anything is done wrong by the living entity, then that is attributed to the parent. So if one feeds the child, wrong foods, it's not the child who's going to get punished. It's going to be the parent who gets punished up to the age of 5. But after that, it is explained as, or it is the responsibility shifts at some point from the parent to the child, when the child has sufficient understanding of what is right and what is wrong. And that generally is assumed to be at the age of 5. But I think it depends on each child. It's not that is a fixed rule. I do not believe. The reason being, if you don't understand it's wrong, then, as you said rightly, how can you be punished for it? But ignorance is also no excuse, like it says in law. Ignorance is not an excuse. So if you break a traffic light and it's red, if you go through it, you will get punished. The fact that, oh, I didn't realize I'm colorblind or whatever, doesn't matter. You're still going to get punished. But it's a question of the responsibility of that punishment, where it lies.
Yeah, I think if you do something in ignorance, I think the severity might be a little less.
Yep. Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you, Mataji.
Okay.
But it doesn't mean, like as adults, we can't use that excuse all the time that, oh, I didn't know, I didn't realize. It won't be accepted because we're supposed to be able to distinguish between right and wrong as adults, so.
Yeah, because like with law as well, if you break the law, the first time you might just get a warning, but the second time you won't get a warning, because you should have learned a lesson by then. Similarly, I think with karma as well, first time punishment might not be as severe, but then, it won't be that all the time.
Yep,
Is that okay,
yep.
Punamati?
Yes, Prabhuji. Yes, thank you, Mataji.
Okay, anything else? Anybody else? So we're all probably getting a little bit more white hairs than we'd like to. And we should think about that, as time passes. we have to look at our personal positions and make some sort of, positive move towards becoming detached. And the best way, of course, is to become more attached to the Lord. That is the best way to become less attached to anybody and, the material world. But that shift has to take place. And it's quite a shift. And if we start it gradually, before we get too old, that shift is much easier the transition is much easier. So attachment to children, I mean, I'm not saying don't be attached to children, because at the end of the day, that's natural. Mothers are attached to their children, fathers are attached, of course, that's natural. But we have to understand those attachments will keep us in this world. At some point, that attachment has to be severed. It will be severed anyway. At the point of death, that attachment will finish completely. It'll be a hard stop at that time. But we can make it a soft soft stop by becoming detached whilst we're in this body. Then it becomes a little easier. The transition is a little easier. The hard stop means we continue to have attachments and we'll stay in this world. The soft stop means we've stopped having that attachment in this very life. That is fantastic. That is really good, because we're opening up higher platforms of existence for ourselves. But it's a tough situation, tough thing to talk about, because it can be a very emotive subject.
On that note, Prabhuji, even the decision that Dhritarashtra had to take, that was also quite hard, I mean, given that he was old, given that he was frail at that point in time, and given that he had to, he's blind, I mean, not that he's an able-bodied person. So,
yeah, extraordinary. What an extraordinary move. Yeah, that's right.
So,
it's laudable. Yeah. Very, very amazing move, actually. You're right. Absolutely amazing move. And if he can do it, and he, as you said, he was blind, he was old, that gives us some sort of courage, But yeah, you're spot on. You're spot on.
Yeah, but again, he was a human being of, that era.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we are talking about this era.
Yeah. We take that into account.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And that's why actually Krishna has put the 4 ashrams into place, because, like first 25 years, you have a brahmachari student life, and then next 25 grihastha, marriage, and then next 25 vanaprastha, which is what one should be aiming towards, retirement from family life. So again, less attachment to family, and then more attachment to spiritual places, yatras and things like that. Slowly detaching from family life as well.
To do it suddenly at the end of life will be a challenge, for no doubt about it. But as Jayanti said, this gradual progression through the different ashrams makes it a little bit more easier. One ashram is very important. Oh, Surinder, anything you'd like to contribute, please?
Hare Krishna, Dandavat Prabhu, Nitai Gaur Haribol. Yes, well said, Prabhu, and very interesting Srimad Bhagavatam class. Very nice, interesting. So I would like to share some key points we learned. So every scripture emphasizes in sadhu sangha. So the slok is sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sarva shastra kahe, lava matra sadhu sangha, sarva siddhi hoye. So the emphasis is that we should associate with devotees of Krishna, and then we will gradually make progress in our Krishna consciousness and attain perfection in our Krishna consciousness in due course of time by grace of Sri Guru Gauranga and Vaishnavas. Yeah.
Mm.
And there is a verse in Prapanajamamitam, which is as follows: Sadhu Sangat Sarvam Eva Sulabham Tulayama Venapena Swargam Napunar Bhavam Bhagavat Sangi Sangasya Martyanam Kim Utasisa. This verse is from Sonaka Rishi, by the sages of Naimisaranya, headed by Sonaka Rishi. Only by the association of pure devotees, sadhu sangha, is everything happily achieved. The attainment of heaven or liberation cannot even slightly compare with the immeasurable fortune gained by the association of an associate of the Supreme Lord, that is the Vaishnava. Yeah? What then can be said of the petty dominion and assets of mortal man? So then the instruction also goes on to say, Asat Sangha Tyaga E Vaishnava Cha. We have to give up mundane association. So I'll read one paragraph with this context. Those who do not practice Krishna consciousness or serve the Lord are called asat, inauspicious, unholy, non-eternal. But those who serve the Supreme Lord are called sadhu, holy persons. Hearing, chanting, remembering about the Lord, praying to the Lord, worshipping the Lord, etc. are devotion. To pick flowers, make garlands, grind sandalwood, clean the temple, dress the deities, cook for the deities, wash the dishes for the service of the Lord. This is all devotion. This is all service. Those who do not practice even one of the devotional practices, hearing, chanting, remembering, deity worship, are non-devotees. You should keep away from them. Those who want to practice Krishna consciousness must give up all such association. Those who are eager to practice Krishna consciousness must always be alert and make sure no obstacles are created as a result of non-devotees association. So in this way, it is emphasized these 2 points, Asat Sangha Tyaga and Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. So in this way, then our Krishna consciousness will progress. So in this chapter, we've seen that how Vidura came, he's a Mahatma, he's a good, great devotee, and he gives instructions to Dhritarashtra, and Dhritarashtra benefited by following instruction of Vidura. And in the material world, we all subjected to this moment of happiness, distress, hankering, and lamentation. And then when we get to the association of devotees, then we can be freed from lamentation by listening to Harikatha. It's like listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam Katha we just listened, and nicely explained by Abhinandan Prabhu and Jayanti Mata and the Vaishnavas. So we seek the blessing of all the Vaishnavas. Please give us a drop of your mercy so that we can practice our Krishna consciousness like that very nicely. Thank you, Prabhu. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna, everybody. Thank you, Surinder. It was very nice. Nice share. So thank you, everybody. We can leave it at that, and we'll catch up with chapter 14, hopefully next Friday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
very
Lena.
much.
Thank you for your
Very
darshan as well of
interesting.
the deities. Very beautiful.
I'm so glad we started this again.
Hare Krishna, Sunil. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Shaivi and Puna Mataji. Hare Krishna, Shyamalini.
Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavad. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Nandalila. Fantastic recitation.
Nitai Gaur Hari Bol.